you, Martin. First of all, I would like to thank you for receiving us and accessing this interview for e-Medida magazine in a year that is especially important for metrology. Well, starting, the BIPM was established in 1875, and since then, the needs of science and society have evolved. What is the key role of the BIPM nowadays?
Well, thank you and welcome to BIPM. It's a pleasure to have you here. As you said, the BIPM was established in 1875 when 17 states signed the Meter Convention. And the objective of the BIPM then was the same as it is today. The objective stated in the Meter Convention was to ensure and promote the perfection of the metric system. Back in 1875, that mainly concerned work with the kilogram and the meter, probably mostly with the meter. That was the practical measurement of most concerns and most states and most of industry and most of society in those days. Since then, of course, metrology has enormously expanded. And in 1960, we adopted the SI system as the way to promote the metric system. And we continue with that through to our promotion of the changes to the SI that were made in last November.
Okay, thank you. Well, going deeper on that subject, the needs of industry and society in relation to metrology have evolved rapidly, especially in terms of ranges of measurement and accuracy. So, us, the National Metrology Laboratories, must adapt our activities to face all those challenges. What actions is the BIPM taking to help us to accomplish this mission?
Yes, we all recognise that the application of measurement is increasing in very many different ways. It's increasing in terms of the accuracy that's needed in many applications. It's increasing the requirements for the range of measurements from very, very big and heavy objects to very, very small and nanoscale objects. But then also the application is increasing in terms of the way measurements are made. We now expect them to be embedded inside industrial machines, inside consumer machines even. So in all of these areas, we continue and will continue to be organising the consultative committees that address 9 particular areas of measurement, and those are the forum for the NMIs from all around the world to come together here at the BIPM to meet, and under the chairmanship of one of the CIPM, the president of each of those CCs, discuss how to take forward the most important challenges in each of those areas.
Okay. Well, last year, November last year, the General Conference voted to the redefinition of SI. The most relevant revisions is since 1960. How did you live all those intense days? Did you feel at some point for the success of the conference?
Yes, well, the conference last year, particularly the 16th of November, was the climax for us of an activity that was a huge piece of teamwork from around the world. We could only do that because we knew that all the NMIs, all the member states, all the scientists, all the directors involved were fully in support of what was going to be agreed on that day. So I could be very confident that this was an event that everybody was in favour of, everybody wanted to agree on, and everybody wanted to happen on that day. In fact, we discovered that one of the reasons that the newspapers and television and media from around the world wanted to cover the event was that they found it very interesting that this was an area where the countries from all around the world agreed. And that's not something we see in the media very much. So knowing that there was going to be very, very strong agreement for this, and this was a huge piece of teamwork from literally every part of the world, I think we were all confident that it was going to be a great event.
Okay. So the conference was a positive turning point for metrology. Okay. Martin, could you explain in a few words the main changes that will be put into practice with the revised system and what advantages it has in relation with the previous one?
So the main change, which affected 4 of our base units particularly, was to base our definitions on fundamental constants. Fundamental constants that are part of our understanding of the science of the world, the physics of the world, if you like. And by moving our definitions to the basis of fundamental constants, we have definitions that are, if you like, future-proofed. They can be used again and improved as we improve our understanding of science. As new technologies become available, we can use them within the context of the new definitions. This also enabled us to bring the electrical units back into our system. It enables us to provide a system for temperature measurement that is much more flexible with new opportunities for new methods in the future. And then I mentioned finally the thing that a lot of people mentioned first, which is that we now have the opportunity to make measurements of mass using the Kibble balance method or the silicon crystal method, which are primary methods. They're fundamental methods for measuring mass, and those are fully part of our system now. So NMIs and laboratories around the world can develop their own systems now for making measurements, mass measurements in terms of the kilogram that are traceable to the SI system without referring to the historic artifacts that we've used very successfully since 1889 for the kilogram.
So the kilogram will be a kilogram here and in mass, for instance. Well, thank you, Martin. So what will be the impact of the SAI redefinition for the scientific community?
So the work of metrology, one of the ways I explain it is that the metrology labs around the world work to produce a system of measurements that is constant, a system of measurements that doesn't change. That's our job, to produce a system that doesn't change. And all the labs around the world have done a very good job, as a result of which nothing immediately changes after the definition. But what we do have now is the opportunity for things to change in the future. And the way things will change in the future is that new methods can be used for realizing units. So one would hope, one expects, one is confident that the daily life for citizens doesn't change overnight on the 16th of November, doesn't change overnight on the 20th of May when we have the final implementation. But as technology is developed to implement the SI systems in new ways, then we hope and expect to have the SI implemented in industry using quantum realizations of some of the units that can actually be implemented in industry. Perhaps even to have the SI realized in handheld devices in the future. We don't know. There is no limit to the way the system might develop.
And what will be the impact at the APM level?
So at our level, as we move to this system where the units can be realized independently around the world, our task, which is a task of coordination, continues to be important. It continues to be important to ensure that what goes on in all of our member states is coordinated, so that in the context of our consultative committees, within the context of our CIPM mutual recognition arrangements, there is a system in place globally that's recognised that enables NMIs to show that their measurements continue to be equivalent. And I think that task continues.
Okay. Those changes have had a great impact in media all around the world. Do you think it's a positive point for metrology?
Yeah, I think the 16th of November last year was a very positive point for metrology. It's not often the case that metrology is one of the top items in the media. And by coming together and by promoting the same message amongst all the NMIs, all the states around the world, we were able to make a story that got metrology right at the top of the media agenda for one day. So that was a highlight for metrology. But we don't leave it there. We can't leave it there. Now is the chance to continue to work through our public engagement activities in every country to keep the topic of metrology in people's minds, to build on those references in newspapers and websites on television back in November that people can remember, to follow on through media like this one that we're using today, to continue to explain our story and to keep the profile of accurate measurement very high in the minds of citizens and governments and industry around the world.
Okay. I think education is the greatest challenge we have ahead. How to explain all those changes at school, for instance. What action would you suggest to promote the correct use of the SI at schools, high school, etc.?
I think a lot of work went into providing different ways to explain the impact of the new changes and the way the system works with new definitions. And a lot of insight was brought by young people working on YouTube and working with their blogs, finding new ways to explain things. So I think this is a very active field now. I hope that NMIs and member states will be able to continue to inspire the community of teachers in each country to find new ways to update texts, to update teaching material, to ensure that we do teach the correct use of the SI.
Okay. Kibble balance.
Kibble.
One of the most complex experiments has been the determination plan constant by means using the Kibble balance. The BIPM has its own balance. Is it fully operational right now?
As you say, the Kibble balance is a very complex experiment, and it was a very large part of the motivation and the background for being able to achieve redefinition in November last year. Of course, results from Kibble balances have been published by 3 or 4 NMIs worldwide. We have a Kibble balance here. Our Kibble balance is fully operational, and we are working on data runs of many days and weeks, enabling us to refine the system. Currently, it operates at an uncertainty level of around a part in 10 to the 7, and we've set a target in a couple of years' time for it to be able to realise the kilogram as a practical level needed by NMIs. So I'm very confident about the progress with that experiment. We're now at the point where the very last elements of refinement in the design and operation of the system are being put in place.
I have a worry. Do you consider it is necessary for NMIs to have a Kibble balance to maintain its level at primary level?
Well, in the new system, each NMI can choose. Each NMI can choose whether it wishes to develop or acquire, purchase a Kibble balance system, or whether it wants to use the silicon Avogadro XRCD system, or whether it wishes to continue to take traceability from the BIPM or from one of those labs that maintains a primary realization. All of these options are open now. It's possible for labs to continue to take their traceability from BIPM, or it's possible to take one of these new routes. That's a choice that each state can make freely of its own.
In the future, called mise en pratique, what will be the role of the BIPM? How is planned the mise en pratique of the new kilogram?
So the mise en pratique of the kilogram foresees a transfer of traceability, if I can use that phrase, from the old kilogram, the international prototype, to the new primary realizations. The BIPM will be involved in operating a primary realization, operating our Kibble balance. So we will still be strongly involved in disseminating traceability in that way.
Okay. Change the subject. Some people think that SI revision will produce a larger metrological gap among countries, regions, and national institutes. What is your opinion? And if so, how can the BIPM help to mitigate this effect?
Well, it shouldn't result in a metrological gap, because this is a move which, if you like, opens up the system. So different states, different NMIs in different states can make their own choices about how they wish to realise the SI units. We're going to continue to be coordinating through the consultative committees which are really the forum within which best practice and opportunities for sharing traceability are shared amongst NMIs. That will continue.
Mm-hmm.
The good spirit developed building up to the redefinition last year will continue. And in this way, I think the opportunities for NMIs to share, opportunities to share the latest technologies will continue. There are opportunities developed within the regional metrology organisations to share technology. So I think we'll continue with those mechanisms to ensure that there shouldn't be a metrology gap. On our side at the IPM, we now have a capacity building program. The capacity building program supports scientists and other staff in NMIs with developing metrology systems to interact with more experienced scientists and metrology staff in understanding the system, but also we're working in areas to provide some technical knowledge transfer within the context of our capacity building program. So we're doing what we can to continue to support the sharing of information between NMIs.
Thank you, Martin. Another of our worries is about the second generation of quantum metrology. Do you think that those institutes that do not bet on these technologies will be left behind in the near future, remaining as third level laboratories, for instance?
Again, this shouldn't happen. I think it depends on national metrology labs remaining close to and understanding their industrial requirements and their academic requirements in each country. If NMIs continue, and because I know they do, to work closely with industry, and industry is developing quantum metrology solutions, then there is a scope for some exchange of technology there, which should enable the NMIs that are most closest to the requirements for quantum metrology to be sharing in the use of quantum metrology.
Okay. Well, in the future, the next step of the development of SI will be the redefinition of the second candela, perhaps?
Well, when we explain the benefits of metrology, we talk about it being motivated to produce stable measurements. But metrology is a very dynamic field, so we produce stable measurements, but we're always looking for ways to improve and new directions to exploit the measurement expertise. So you asked the question where we might go next. Well, we know that in the time community there is a great deal of potential from the use of optical clocks in place of our current microwave frequency clocks. It seems that might lead to a new definition of the second, perhaps in 2026, perhaps in 2030. There's still a lot of work to do. You asked a question about the candela. I'd like to suggest that increasingly, as we face the challenges of implementing good measurement in biology, there's a need for a better understanding of measurement quantities relating to the response of the human body, to the response of animal systems. And perhaps there could be a way of structuring our system of quantities and units to distinguish between those quantities and units that are part of our fundamental understanding of physics and chemistry, and another set that are more related to the response of biological systems. So that's one aspect of it. Another aspect of it is that as we move further into nanotechnology and biology, it becomes much more important to be able to identify, to be able to quantify the identity of what we're looking at. Our current system doesn't put a particularly clear priority on the measurement of identity and the measurement of counting objects. So I think these are areas that the NMIs and the consultative committees will certainly want to look into more in the future.
Okay. So could be under consideration modifying the number of base units, or even suppress such current classification in basic and derived units?
But I wouldn't want to recommend changing the base units or changing the derived units, but I would want to recommend that I'm sure the CIPM will continue to reflect always on the users of what we do. And whilst the users immediately of what we do are the NMIs and the regions and the most informed laboratories in every country, we're also responsible for a system that's used by many billion citizens worldwide. So in making changes to what is a base unit and what is a derived unit, I think we have to reflect carefully on the understanding we're trying to develop with a very, very diverse global population. And to start changing some of our principles when we've just had a great opportunity to explain what we're doing and how we're moving forward, we need to think carefully about whether we really want to start changing the principles when we're trying together. And I think we've been very successful in getting buy-in from citizens over the whole world.
Okay. Finally, how do you think BIPM should be in the near future, for instance, 5 or 10 years?
So I think the work of coordination that we do continues, and one can argue that the work of coordination becomes more important as primary realizations become more dispersed around the world. It becomes more important to coordinate those primary realizations. So that's one aspect. Another aspect is in terms of promoting metrology. There are many international organizations in our world today. Many of them aren't familiar with the impact of measurement science and metrology on their mandates. And I think if we can work with the CIPM to promote the importance of metrology in trade, in culture perhaps, in economic development in these different areas, that will bring some benefits to our global community of metrology.
Thank you very much, Martin.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Thank you.